Welcome back to the channel. My name is TheKloudWiz and this is the Awesome series. So far, we've looked at how devices, applications, websites, and the internet form parts of the digital world. We've also looked at how servers powers all the applications and then websites that we use. These servers are hosted in massive facilities called data centers. Before organizations could deploy these applications or websites, they had to set up these data centers, purchase servers, set up power, networking, and cooling. This resulted in massive upfront costs and also presented a barrier into market because if you are a startup and you don't have that huge upfront investment, then you couldn't launch. So co-location came to change the game a little bit by offering a shared facility. They set up these massive data centers with redundant power, cooling, and robust internet. And then organizations will now rent small spaces in that facility to deploy their applications. Even though co-location had these benefits, it was still not enough because companies still had to invest in servers and networking hardware. So the game changer came in. That was cloud computing. So cloud computing now set up these data centers, invested in the servers, and then now offered these services on demand over the internet. So as an organization, you didn't need upfront expenditure anymore. You just had to sign up to a cloud provider and then start using. You'll be billed based on what you use and when you use them. In this episode, we are going to look at cloud deployment models. We are going to understand where the cloud lives and who manages what. So let's get into it. Think of a deployment model as where your infrastructure is set up, right, or lives. Who owns it, who manages, and then who uses it. The first one is the public cloud. So the public cloud infrastructure is owned and operated by third-party cloud providers, and the resources are shared and accessed over the internet. Think of this as renting an apartment in a very large building. The facilities has its own infrastructure. You have all your belongings and everything in that facility, and then you get to share the infrastructure with other tenants. So if you're a startup or a developer who has flexible workloads and then you are looking to launch in the cloud, then the public cloud model is for you. Next is the private cloud. This is exclusive to one organization, and it can either be hosted on the organization's premises or hosted by a third party, but in most cases, it is on premises. This offers enhanced control, customization, and security. Think of this as owning a private home built by a third party. You are renting, but the entire building is dedicated to you and you alone. This deployment model is common with financial institutions, government agencies, or organizations with strict security and compliance needs. And there is the hybrid cloud. This is basically a combination of both private and public cloud. It allows data and an application to be shared between the two infrastructure for flexibility, scalability, and balance. For example, if an organization has strict data governance and compliance needs, then they would want to host their application front end in the cloud, whilst the database that keeps people's data stays on-prem. So with this, you want to set up in a way that data is smoothly exchanged between the application front end that is in the cloud and then the database that is on premises. Think of this as having a house that you are renting. That is where you live, so you keep all your private stuff there. And then also having a workspace that you also rent, but this is for the public because that is where you do your business. You can also think of it as having a store in the marketplace whilst you have a warehouse somewhere private. And then you move goods between the warehouse and the store in the marketplace. This deployment model is suitable for organizations that have diverse workloads or varying data sensitivity needs. So to summarize, the public cloud is internet-based, shared, and it's fully hosted by a third-party cloud provider. The private cloud, on the other hand, is dedicated to one organization, is secure, and it's either hosted on-prem or the third-party provider. The hybrid cloud, on the other hand, combines both deployment models and enable data sharing. Beyond these three main deployment models, there were other infrastructure or organizational needs that required different deployment models. So there were other deployment models that were developed, which were basically abstraction or a combination of the three main deployment models. So let's quickly look at them. There is the multi-cloud setup, where an organization would decide to run their workload with 2 or more cloud providers. This is to prevent vendor lock-in, increase application availability, disaster recovery, and also leverage on the provider-specific strengths because, of course, there is an undenied fact that different cloud providers have different strength areas. There is the community cloud. So the community cloud is more of having one shared cloud environment for organizations with common goals or compliance needs. So if you take the financial institutions or the healthcare institutions or even the government institutions or the government security agencies, right? They can have a common cloud environment where they all go for data or they all go to get data from. And there is the distributed cloud. So distributed cloud is basically using a cloud service and then spreading your workload across multiple locations. It can include your on-premises, it can include somewhere in the public cloud. So for example, you have an organization you want to deploy part of their infrastructure in Africa, maybe 3 countries in Africa, and they set up the same infrastructure in other 3 countries in Europe, right? That is basically distributing their workload across multiple locations. This is a common practice with organizations that host online gaming applications, applications that take real-time data, or IoT devices. This is because applications of this nature are sensitive to latency, so you would want to set up closer to your users or at edge locations where latency is very low. And there is the government cloud. So just as the name goes, so government cloud is a specialized, isolated environment designed for only government agencies, and this has strict compliance, security, and then regulatory standards. So you're going to see that, as I said, in government agencies that have very sensitive workload that require strict security and compliance standards. So key takeaways from this: deployment models define where your cloud resources are hosted and then who manages them. It includes public, private, and hybrid, and each have their distinct characteristics and use cases. Each model has its advantages and trade-offs concerning costs, security, control, and scalability. There are other models like the multi-cloud, the community cloud, distributed, and gov cloud that cater for specialized organizational needs. Okay, so that will be it for this. In the next video, we are going to look at what we call cloud service models. This is basically what cloud providers offer you within the deployment models. If you found this video helpful, kindly like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications. The name is TheKloudWiz, and I'll see you in the next one.